What is up, everyone? Dan the Card Man back again. Welcome to the last weekly trading card news video for the year. It's going to be a very quick one today because it's going to drop on Christmas Day, Australian time. It's going to be Christmas Eve in the US when you see this, so I don't want you to, stare at my ugly face for too long. I think you should be spending time with your family, so I've made it pretty quick. Now, this first one is going to be a minor update that eBay looks like they've pushed out to, a small sample of customers. I don't know how many customers are starting to see this, but for a few auctions now, when you're sending an offer, they're mandating this portion, right? Where you have to put in your credit card details or payment details before you send the offer. So as soon as the seller accepts that offer, you automatically pay. Now, I know this is a feature that has been around for a bit of time when it comes to buy it nows. I'm not sure if it's been around for offers, but I've had a card that I sold, not an auction, that this was put on that I didn't put on myself, right? And the buyer was forced to pay, I should say, immediately. So, I think it's a really, really good step in the right direction from eBay. I hope we see it rolled out to every single item, including buy it nows, including items with offers, including auctions, because you would have seen me talk about shill bidding in the last couple of weeks, and something like this would be a very strong deterrent when it comes to shill bidders. Now, I'm going to talk about this in a bit more detail in my video on Monday, Tuesday, depending on where you are in the world, so please stay tuned for that. But those are my thoughts right now. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below if you've seen this yourself yet, because this was posted on the Sports Card Nonsense page. A few people have said, I've seen it. A few people have said, I haven't seen it. It looks like they've pushed it out to only certain items. It doesn't look like it's being pushed out by the sellers themselves. It's not an option from the sellers. It looks mandatory from eBay. So drop your thoughts down in the comments below, and then we can chat through that a little bit more when it comes to Monday, Tuesday video next week. Now, the next thing I want to talk to is some comments that are, borderline racist, in my opinion, from Dan the Great Curator. I highlighted this in my Naughty or Nice list video from a couple of days ago. I'll play it for you. We can chat through it, and you can make up your own mind.
A lot of these players, they look like they're not from those countries. Like they maybe lived in those countries for a little bit, but a lot of them are like, it seems like they're from different places and they immigrated to those countries and to be on those teams,
Right.
It's kind of crazy. So just something to think about, I guess. Like that French team is just full of people that they don't have French names. You know what I mean?
Why, do you have to have a French name?
Yeah, if you're from France, right?
Right. So you can see, what do you think of those words? I found them to be borderline racist, in my opinion. And trust me, guys, the irony was not lost on me that you had somebody that looks like Dan does, okay, who's living in America making those kinds of comments, right? Somebody whose family very clearly immigrated to America making those kinds of comments. Like, does he consider himself not to be American because he doesn't have an American surname? What is an American surname? Especially, in the last 100 years, what is the, appropriate surname for some of these Western countries and some of these European countries in the last 100 years? Post World War II, even though it was not 100 years ago, many of these countries experienced significant immigration, right? They had, unique immigration policies to try and build up their countries, get people out of these war-torn countries to try and, start better lives. And a lot of those are the reasons why you see so many Africans being immigrated to France, especially post-World War II, like I just touched on. Like, this guy might see, Frank Ribéry, he might see Karim Benzema, he might see Zinedine Zidane, who is probably the best French player of all time. He'd see those three players because they're white. Is he going to say, no, they don't look French, they don't have a French surname? Does he know they're from Algeria, which is a African country? Like, what's he trying to say here? And one thing with Dan, the Great Curator, that's always pretty interesting is that you don't often have to put words in his mouth to try and, read between the lines, because he often, his word vomit speaks for his true self, in my opinion. I just found the whole situation, very, very odd. And you could tell Merlin, I'm not sure if I've already touched on, looked a little bit awkward throughout this exchange, because he's sort of like, what are you saying, dude? Like, what does it mean to look like to be somebody from France? Like, do you have to be white? What does that mean? Like, I'm Aussie. I've seen a few people comment on Instagram that made similar comments around, like, being Canadian. What does a true Canadian look like? Like me, what does an Australian look like? If you grew up in Southwest Sydney, which is where I grew up, it's all pretty much Europeans, Italians, Greeks, so on and so forth. Now you've got, like, Lebanese people in this area. You've got, a lot of Indians. It's like, what does it mean to be Australian? In my opinion, what it means to be Australian, this also applies to the Western world, everywhere, it means to be diverse, right? You come from diverse backgrounds. It doesn't matter what you look like, where you're from, you are who you want to be, right? And if you've grown up in Australia, you are Australian. Go look at the Australian national team when it comes to soccer, right? How many of those guys consider to look like true Australians? It's like, it's just a weird comment to make. I don't know if he meant them the way he did, but, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if he did because it's hard to argue against, in my opinion. Now, the next thing I want to talk to is a sports card radio being sued by a sports card investor situation. Now, it was pretty funny because they posted this video. I'm actually listed, albeit slightly, in the legal letter that was sent by SCI's lawyers to Sports Card Radio. Some of my, you know, posts from Instagram were in there. I think it's worth checking out if you haven't seen the video already. I would assume most of you would have, but essentially Sports Card Investor has threatened legal action towards Sports Card Radio following their comments around the Triple P loans and some of his potential hanky-panky, right? So I'm not too sure what's going to happen with this situation. Sports Card Radio seem very confident, as they always do. I don't have a lot of experience in this space, so I don't know, you know, what's going to happen next, but sort of stay tuned, check out the video if you haven't seen it already. Check out the 35-page legal document that they've uploaded to their website. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, because I think it's a pretty interesting, you know, talking point, and it might highlight a few things or changes to how things are reported within the hobby long term, which, you know, could be good or bad depending on what side of the fence you are sitting on. Now, the last point is going to be some interesting news that Paul Esco once again posted, who is, you know, our favorite hobby attorney, talk through Alt essentially suing Beckett with regards to grading an altered or fake, you know, Steph Curry rookie card gold refractor version. Now, essentially Alt is saying Beckett graded this as 9.5. They've since cracked it and identified that the card was trimmed, I think is essentially where things are right now, or not basically unauthentic. Now, from their perspective, they're saying, well, Beckett, you apply to us, or you tell us, you give us comfort within the market that that 9.5 card that you've graded is free from error, right? It's not altered, it's not trimmed, it's not fake, right? Now, essentially, that's what this court case is going to determine. I think it's a pretty interesting talking point because, you know, this could have some pretty widespread ramifications on the grading industry as a whole, on the authentication industry as a whole, because if these graders can get away with not giving you that comfort and not holding that liability, right? That liability of, if we've graded something incorrectly, we have to pay you back the market value of the card. If they don't have to be held to the law to maintain that, then I think it's a very scary thing with some of these cards that have been graded in the past, because as we know, these graders have been incredibly incompetent over the last 2 to 3 years. And this is a very interesting thing to see moving forward. Now, this case gets a bit interesting because from my understanding, Alt have since cracked that card, determined it was, you know, trimmed or altered in a slight capacity, and they haven't filmed it. And that gives Beckett some recourse, in my opinion, because there's no real audit trail from Alt's perspective. But it's an interesting one to understand moving forward because, you know, like I said, if Beckett does not need to be held accountable here, what does that mean for the rest of these graders, and what does it mean moving forward? So, like I said, an interesting talking point. Drop your thoughts on that one down in the comments below. That's sort of it for today. Very quick one. Like I said, I hope you all, you know, have had a great year. I hope you have a good holiday period with your family. I hope you enjoy Christmas Day. Get some nice goodies, nice gifts from the kids, from the wife, from the family, whoever's giving you presents. I hope you hit some good cards in whatever boxes you do get. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate your support this entire year. It's been really, really good to make content pretty regularly for you guys. Minimum 3 videos a week, which I think is a really good effort on my part. I hope you do enjoy it because I do this all for fun. It's a bit of a release for me from, you know, life in general, right? So I hope you liked the videos. I hope you did enjoy this one, and I will see you in the new year. Cheers.